When I started taking photographs, I did not really understand what photography was. As a child, I liked framing a piece of the world, leaving out all the rest. It felt magical, and on some days it was all I needed. It took many years and thousands of photos to understand that there was much more to it. I now think that taking photos has a lot to do with revelation. Because there is a sort of empathy between you and your subject. And there is an emotional tension in which even the camera itself plays an active part. The camera's eye is peculiar. It sees what the human eye cannot. The revelation came to me from the Orient, as Matisse once said. This happened by chance in Marrakesh, due to a wrong setting on my first digital camera. Due to an overexposed and blurry photo, I noticed that reality showed a face I had not seen before. But evidently it had always been there. I realized that by moving the camera while shooting, I could capture the essence of things. I could penetrate their secret soul. And I'd like to think that it was the camera itself that helped me realize this. Between the 60s and the 70s, I mainly photographed jazz musicians on film in black and white. Thanks to my father, Arrigo, who was the editor of a jazz magazine and an organizer of jazz concerts, my home was filled with the world of jazz. The history of jazz and its greatest musicians had been in front of my lens for more than 10 years. I liked to photograph them while they improvised, immersed in their own music. A shaky camera was my worst enemy then, because with a 200mm lens and 1/30th of a second exposure, I risked obtaining blurry pictures every time. It was not until many years later, when I went through those negatives again, that I realized I had not actually managed to freeze those moments. Instead, I realized my hand had followed a movement. I had photographed the music as it flowed. That's why when I started to travel more often, I tried to look at things with a different eye, communicating with the places of the world in their mysterious language. I've always been interested in painting, but it was thanks to my wife, Patricia, that I discovered the Orientalist painters of the 1800s. She was my life partner and a long-time travel companion, and she loved 19th century art. My fascination with the East had originated as a child over Salgari's novels, but I finally understood that my interest came from the particular way the Western eye had seen the East, and in some sense misunderstood it. All those watercolors are beautiful and fascinating, but do they show reality? Marrakesh, for example, is somehow different from how Orientalists had depicted it. Still, it is also that. It plays with this ambiguity. It remembers its past and is aware of its imaginary world. Exploring with the camera made me realize that what we think we see is not always the truth, regardless what you define as truth. I've also been to Venice many times, and there I also attempted to represent the truth of the city. Then the situation is completely different, because Venice is full of tourists. So, differently to what I did in Marrakesh, in Venice I completely eliminated people from my images. I focused exclusively on its atmospheres. Then on a trip to New York, I realized that places not only preserve their past, they also foreshadow their future. Until then, I thought that only technology changed quickly, but I was wrong. Everything changes, including cities. Cities are living organisms. It's like children. You come back to see them after a while and find them totally different. My project on future cities emerged from this idea. In the East, I photographed the shadows of a distant past. In cities like New York, Shanghai, Singapore, Dubai, I could glimpse into the future. Moving the camera while shooting is not simply a photographic technique. It really is a different language. Cartier-Bresson said that a good photographer puts his head, his eye and his heart on the same axis. For me, the eye is the camera in motion. I strongly believe that a photographer's subject connects itself to the photographer's wavelength, at least when it wishes to speak. When this happens, completely unexpected details emerge. It is as if reality wants to show us its true face. Perhaps it's the unexpected red light that emerges from the lines of a crowded street in New York, or a set of keys that show up in the hands of a merchant in a Moroccan souk, or John Coltrane's immersed look into some other world. It's a real revelation. Magic, perhaps.